On today's show, Volkswagen and Mercedes finally get serious about their electric vehicle offerings. I've got lots of Tesla news, particularly those Aussies out there wanting to know when the Model 3 configurator and deliveries will start, and Dyson. They're definitely very serious about EVs as well. And well, this and a whole lot more on today's episode. Alright, g'day and welcome. My name's Chris and this is your show on everything happening in Australia and, well, sometimes around the world, in what's happening in the space of our progress to cleaner and greener forms of transport like electric vehicles and scooters and the like. And for my returning subscribers, thanks for these encouraging comments. Keep them coming. I'd like to hear from you. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Alright, so first up, have you ever wanted to get a lift from maybe your house to Melbourne Airport in a Tesla? Well, now you can. The service Evoque, which has actually been in Sydney since 2015, launched quietly back here in November last year. And well, when they did so, they actually did it for the Melbourne Cup. And well, it turns out major events in Melbourne and gridlock are not a good thing because the first rides for the day took over 2 hours. And well, let me tell you, Flemington's only like 5 kilometers from the city, so 2 hours is quite unusual and very, very bad. Evoque was founded by Edison in Sydney in 2015, and since then they've already done like 1.8 million kilometers of travel. And obviously in that time they've been using superchargers to keep their fleet going. And for those out there who may know, Tesla used to offer free charging for everyone, including businesses, and so it made a lot of sense to get into this game. But since then Tesla's changed the rules around that, and so now businesses can't get free supercharging anymore, rightfully so I think. And also we're now getting a lot more like Uber, like X and Lyft and all those other ride sharing companies who are offering obviously very competitive rates. But nonetheless, if you actually want to do this and you're looking for something that's clean and green, well, hey, go check them out. The rates are pretty competitive, and from $85 an hour, you can use them for special events like birthdays, weddings, not just lifts to the airport. So yeah, good job. Yeah, okay, so, sorry about that. Turns out Dyson's developing an electric car after all. Now, about 18 months ago, we learned details of them purchasing some land and some like old aircraft hangars in the UK. And back then they spent, well, several millions of pounds on acquiring them. And since then, well, turns out they are really getting serious about this. Back in January, Dyson did announce that Roland Kruger, who used to work for like Infinity Motors, was appointed as head of automotive. And well, it turns out that in more recent times that they've had a few leaks online as to the development of their electric car. And so because of that, James Dyson has made this statement. These patents don't reveal what our vehicles really look like or give any specifics about what it will do, but they do provide a glimpse of some of the inventive steps the company is actually exploring. And well, check out these diagrams. Depending on which one you want to go with, it kind of looks like they've got a long wheelbase. Interestingly, the interior has got like reclining seats and a very aerodynamic design. So you may recall about 18 months ago that they acquired some hangars in, I think it's Hulverton in the UK, and they've since spent about £200 million on getting them up to ship shape. That's kind of a bit of a mixed term, isn't it? But I'm going to go with it. And they're planning this year alone, in 2019, on spending over $1 billion on research and development to get these to market, hopefully, by 2021. So my question is, do you think, just like the vacuums, the price of electric cars is going to be 3 times the price of everyone else? More than likely, but let's face it, those Dyson vacuum cleaners are pretty awesome. So next up, Mercedes starts producing and shipping its EQC electric vehicle. Now, this thing I've got to say is pretty compelling and, well, definitely firmly pointed at the luxury market at this moment in time. This model you're seeing right here is going to cost you at least $114,000 Australian if it was actually available here. And well, hey, a little side note, there is no firm Australian date as of yet, but Mercedes has promised that it will come to Australia. So in terms of specs and models, it will have a range of about 445 kilometers based on the NED cycle and has a 197 to 208 watt hour per kilometer efficiency coming from an 80 kilowatt battery pack. Now, this car, I've got to say, is going to actually excite a lot of Australian buyers, because for those who have been looking for something other than a Tesla, because let's face it, not all cars are to all tastes, and well, it's a very subjective thing, and some people just like brands also. So this will be great when we start seeing more EVs on our roads. So last week, Volkswagen farewelled the e-Golf, which wasn't very sad for us Australians because it never came here in the first place. But this week, they've proudly unveiled the replacement, well, I think it's a replacement, and that is the ID.3, which from here on in, I'm going to call the ID3. And looking at these pictures, which they've kind of camouflaged it, I've got to say, it looks remarkably like the e-Golf. So, hey, very good, very, very good Volkswagen. Love it. Anyway, let's jump into some specifics on it, and I'll give you some comparisons. So, they're coming into 3 different models, and there's going to be the, base, then there's a medium, that's Volkswagen's choice of words, by the way, and long. So, here we go. First up, the base model will pack a 45 kilowatt hour battery capable of doing 330 kilometers, costing 30,000 euros, which is about 48,150 Australian dollars. Now, this actually comes in about £8,000 less than Tesla's Model 3 Standard Base Plus, which can do a few more kilometers at 386 kilometers, but that's on the EPA rating method. Now, the medium has a 58 kilowatt hour battery pack capable of doing 420 kilometers based upon the WLTP standard. Topping out with a long range, you get a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack capable of going 550 clicks, and that range is being offered just for the UK and Europe at this moment in time. This long range I think is pretty compelling, because in terms of difference between the Tesla Model 3 long range at 560 kilometers versus Volkswagen's 550 kilometers, the real big difference here is going to be that Volkswagen is coming in at under 40,000 euros, whereas the Tesla Model 3 is 54,000 euros. So it's kind of like, wow, that is a big difference in price, isn't it? All right, so let's look at the specs. The cars will feature voice control and navigation systems, bicolor exterior interiors, maxi glass roof, and an augmented head-up display. Now, it was fun to see that when pre-orders did go live, it crashed VW's servers, which is the first time that they've actually done this, because in the past, using the old model where you'd actually go to a dealership and actually put some money down and, wait for the dealer to actually get their hands on it for you. This is the first time that Volkswagen's actually experimented with something that Tesla's been doing for a while now, and that's actually directly ordering from them. So curious to see how this actually works for the Australian market and the American market, which, as we know, has been pretty nasty against Tesla and its direct sales model. But nonetheless, unfortunately, no Australian date yet, but I'm going to keep an eye out for this one. Now, if you're fortunate enough to actually have an EV and you've pondered the idea of actually installing a dedicated charger with a high amperage circuit in your house, you would know that it's a little bit more money to actually do so, which I'll get into a bit later in this episode. But if you're actually in the US, and hey, I know there's Americans watching, so thanks for that, really appreciate it. And hey, if you consider subscribing, really supports the channel. Thanks in advance. Anyway, if you're with Edison, they're actually offering now to customers a charger that basically bypasses the need for an installation of an additional circuit. Okay, a little bit of detail. Called the CNET DDR, the device is mounted to the electric meter and connected to both the meter and solar panels. Now, if you were in Australia to go and install a dedicated home charger like this Tesla version, it typically actually costs you, like with an electrician and the hardware, about $1,000 to $2,000 to actually do so. But this system actually bypasses that need altogether. And we'll get this, if you are actually a Edison customer, you get it for free. How awesome is that? You're lucky guys. Now, before I get into the expected Australian Model 3 configurator release date, let me just do a quick little reminder that I'm currently running the Model 3 calculator, so you can actually have a bit of a look to see what the Model 3 might cost no matter where you live in Australia. And I'm still accepting survey responses for your buying indications. All right, next up, Tesla Model 3, Australia. Okay, signs that it's coming? Well, yeah, Tesla's put some ads out seeking more staff, but this headline is as exciting as it is. When I looked online, well, there's only like 3 or 4 sales jobs and a few other sort of technical and behind the scenes type of people. All in all, 8 jobs. That doesn't seem to me to be a massive thing, but then again, maybe Tesla in Australia is quite tiny, so maybe it is a big deal. But the exciting thing here is that with thanks to Ray Johnson, one of my regular viewers on the show, hi Ray, he actually had emailed Tesla and got this from them. Hello, we can expect reservation holders to be invited to access the configurator before the second half of the year and the vehicles to commence delivery in Q3. Okay, so I would like to put a bit of caution on this, but also a little bit of creed, because on the one hand, you've actually got Tesla saying to a customer in the wild that, hey, here's what we're expecting to happen. And more than likely, this message has come from the top down, and they wouldn't be right on that if there actually wasn't something a bit firm around it. But conversely, this is a person who's not actually maybe head of actual distribution for Australia, and they might be talking a bit out of turn without all the information that Tesla America has. So take away what you want, but essentially kind of matches up with what we've already heard previously from Elon in his tweets. Essentially, in July, August, September, that's when we should start seeing deliveries come to Australia. So configurator sometime in June and delivery starting in July. So it's exciting stuff. Last story before we get into promises, and well, this one actually comes once again from Hyundai. Now, last week, you may recall I actually spoke about how the Ioniqs are having some changes coming in Q3 this year. Well, turns out that next year in 2020, they're going to do similar things for the Kona EV. And hey, little plug here. Later this week, I'm going to be giving you my impressions of the Kona EV, which I was able to have a drive in over the weekend. All right, now, what were the changes? Basically, they're going to install for the European market a 3-phase 11 kilowatt onboard charger. They'll upgrade the Hyundai Blue Link app, provide for optional extras, a center touchscreen, and heated rear seats. Alright, so I'd be curious to see if this actually comes out to Australia, because, well, the Kona has literally only been released here in the last few months and are very slowly trickling through. So stand by. Alright, time for one of my favorite segments. Okay, promises is normally about what our politicians are and more generally not doing in the space of renewables, going sustainable, EV transport, and more. And well, this week, I'm not going to bring any policies per se, but there is a very timely update from Tesla for European customers that you can now get a tow accessory added onto your Model 3. It can actually tow like 950 kilograms. So it turns out that the weekend isn't ruined after all. Okay, now my final piece for promises today. I've been harping on recently around about EV incentives and, well, how far behind Australia is in this space. And this last week, I've noticed actually like 2 different articles concerning 3 different states states in America that they're actually introducing taxes for EV owners to pay for roads. And so it got me thinking, because in Australia, we pay like 41.6 cents per litre for road infrastructure, and that generates $18.4 billion of revenue for the government to use on said roads. And P.S. by the way, and park this one for later, about $12 billion actually goes back to subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. Okay, we'll just push that to a side for the moment. That's kind of really awkward. Anywho. So with about 7,000 or 8,000 electric vehicles on our road in Australia right now, which is a tiny fraction of not even 1%, it's way less than that. The Australian government is missing out on those EVs actually obviously filling up on fuel, and so therefore is missing out on $130 million in revenue. Now, fast forward to 2028, where they've done some modeling, and they found that if that was to increase like by 7.5%, the total amount of revenue estimated is only going to be about $450 to $500 million of lost income. So compared to that $18 billion versus that amount of money, it seems insignificant, right? But I'm curious that in America now, 24 states actually have taxes for people who have EV cars. And well, a bit of background though. In America, there's federal incentives. So if you buy a particular car that has produced less than 200,000 variants of that particular maker, they'll get like $7,500 of a tax rebate. And then also there is local state incentives, and there can also be local council incentives as well. So there's like a really, really good case to go to get an EV in America. And obviously realize that, well, hey, these Americans aren't actually paying the part of the road with their fuel excise. And well, how much is that? It turns out that they pay between 2.5 and 10 cents per litre on fuel excise over there. So it's tiny compared to us in Australia. And well, get this. The legislation that has been introduced in these 3 different states is suggestive of them charging about $40, $50 per year up to $200. And well, in Australia, if you were to do 15,000 kilometres per year, the excise that you would pay is about $450. So we are paying way, way more than what the Americans are paying, obviously. But this is a big, vast country, and you know, those roads didn't get there without money. So we need to do this. Now, the point here though is that right now, other than the ACT, where they don't charge stamp duty for electric vehicles, all other states of Australia and other territories don't have EV incentives. And this is my point. How about we reward people who are actually doing the right thing by the environment, cleaning up the air, reducing the impact on the world, and going more sustainable with the transport. Let's reward those drivers and take away from the Australian landscape any talk about taxing EV drivers for their use on the roads. If you have any opportunity to say anything to someone who is electing themselves to office in the next week, please ask them, what are you doing around EV incentives? What are you doing in that space that encourages people into cars? And the thing that will encourage them is cost of ownership. Service costs for EVs are less. Let's also make the taxes a lot less. That will get people out of cars and into the excitement that is EVs. Okay, so bit of a long episode today. Apologies in advance for that, but again, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you would do me a huge favor, I really would like to hear from you. I've got some great suggestions last week, and you know, things like this really do help me and it keeps me going, supports the channel and all that shenanigans. And how do you support the channel? You subscribe, of course, so turn on that notification icon. And if you do nothing, be green, be clean.